Welcome back to Dungeon Master's Corner. Today, we have our good friend and friend of the channel, Tom Dasilis, joining us to discuss his first campaign with us as we delved into Phandalin and battled the bloody Redbrands. Welcome back to another episode of Dungeon Master's Corner. My name is Brian.
I'm Nicole.
And with us today, we have our friend and host of the You Had to Be There podcast, Tom.
Hello again. Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Or just hello.
Yeah, hello. I'm excited to be here. We're gonna talk about well, I don't know. Did you guys have anything you wanted to bring up before?
Nothing beforehand. Today we are going to be jumping into I think we have talked about this particular campaign before, so I'm not out of line saying we're going to jump into another story that takes place during a Lost Mines of Phandelver game that we were a part of, where myself and Tom, we were players, and Nicole, what was your role?
I was the assistant to the DM, because the DM was Andrew, and it was his first time DMing, so he needed a little bit of help.
How many of us out there wish we had an assistant DM the first time we jumped into this? I swear. Andrew, You lucky man.
Oh, yeah.
But this story, oh god, this story. So, background. For this, I was playing a paladin named Placid, tiefling paladin of Conquest. Tom?
Yeah, and I was was my first character ever. His name was Eugene Tealeaf. He was a halfling ranger.
And we were in... It was Phandelver, right? We were in
we
town
were
of
actually in the
Phandelver.
town.
Yes.
And you were trying
and
to
we
deal
had
with
to deal with the Redbrands.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, and they were held up in a... Well, there was really... We kind of knew about them because they were like kind of thugs around the town, but I think the big thing is we needed to like get information, and we had to go into the bar that they were all hanging out in.
Yeah, no one wanted to talk around me or our cleric, Dick Hardwood.
Yeah.
That was the voice he actually used. Because we were lawmen. I actually forced the sheriff or the mayor to give me the sheriff's badge. I'm like, me sheriff now, and intimidated him into doing that.
And Dick was your deputy with a little propeller
Dick was
hat.
my deputy.
It was your deputy. Yeah, so you guys couldn't go in, and now because I built my character kind of like myself, and he had a decent, I think like a +2 in charisma. It wasn't great, but like it was something to work with. And so we had to go in, and I think also because the Horns and Dick Hardwood, we were Quinlan and I, the druid and I were the only ones that could wear the cloaks to like disguise ourselves as like new recruits or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yes. That was when I had to, I guess that would be like, that was the first time I had to like really role play, I think. Because like most of the time I was a little quieter, when you're newer, it's a little harder to like learn how to role play. So that was my first experience where I had to like talk heavily with NPCs. Because I know Quinlan didn't have charisma, so he was just quiet.
Just quiet, and so we decided that Dick and I would stay outside, and in case of an emergency, we would run in and help you, but you were going to try and talk us into what we needed.
Because, splitting the party's a good idea.
Always a good idea. Well, it was going to be fine.
Yes.
Because we were going to be listening outside, and if things went wrong, you were going to like yell something, and we were going to come crashing through the door, and that plan went to shit almost immediately because there were patrols or something outside, and Dick thought this was a wonderful idea. He cast silence around us so we could beat the shit out of these guards and knock them out.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'm yelling at him in vain that now we can't hear the code word.
Yeah.
And the two of you are inside not knowing any of this is happening.
I think the signal was actually... So, fortunately, we didn't need it. But I think the signal was I was just going to rip an arrow through the window. So, you still might have saw it, but yeah, it definitely was a hindrance. But we walked in, and I think the one good thing is I made my first check before he did the silence, and he gave me guidance. So it was also the first time I ever like understood like what guidance was. I was like, all right, so that first check was everything. And I became friends. His name was O'Malley. and he was we found out later to be like a high level rogue, but I just kind of
Monk,
like,
I believe, because it was a drunken master.
oh, was he?
Oh,
Was he a monk?
God.
Yeah, he was a
Interesting.
Andrew
monk.
and his
Rogue.
monks.
Of course.
Interesting. That makes sense. Yes, we found him later, but so I made my first check, and I don't know, I was like, oh, we killed something or whatever, and threw some money down and bought a round of drinks for everyone, and that was like my first persuasion or whatever check ever, and then it went well. And
Yeah, you basically
really,
got the whole bar drunk and made some
Yes.
friends and got the info you needed.
And that's also when I learned that getting NPCs drunk makes it much easier for checks.
I'm pretty sure at the end of that, you got them so drunk that they all passed out.
Yeah.
And I just walked in there and arrested everyone.
Yeah.
And hauled them off one cart at a time to the jail cell.
Yeah, because I was also, I had to pretend to drink. And I think I rolled well for those checks as well. I rolled well really like pretty much that whole campaign. It was like my first campaign, and I was just fire rolling most of the time, and then occasionally I would get a nat 1, and then I would re-roll because I was a halfling and get another nat 1. So that was like my payback for all of the great rolls I had that whole campaign.
Well, you know how that works, right? Your dice know that you're going to get started in this, and like, let's give him good rolls at the start.
Get him
And
hooked.
then betray him after he's,
Yeah,
after
and then you
he's
make
hooked.
other characters. Well, I don't know. He was also, I felt good with him. It was my first character, but yeah. So that was the first part. Was
And
really
the nice
that bar
part
scene.
with the bar scene is you took a lot of the Redbrands out of the equation for when you guys went to their stronghold, their fortress.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I
right.
think we took like 20 of them out of
Yeah.
mission.
So
Mhm.
that we had to go to their like mansion, and because we arrested all of them, there was like the mansion was almost completely vacant, except for the chaos that was around each corner of surprises. But
To be fair, so spoilers, not spoilers for Lost Mines of Phandelver, or Phandalin, technically.
It's been like 7 years.
It's both, but Andrew kind of tweaked the mansion as we do. It was partly an homage to a prior campaign that Brian actually ran, so it was the changes that his party had made to the mansion that these friends got to experience.
Yeah, because they had taken it back. We had run through Lost Mines and then moved into Horde of the Dragon Queen, which is a mess of a module, let me tell you.
But you know,
Rewrites galore.
you got to experience what Plan B did to the mansion as a brand new character.
And Plan B being the name that they decided to take for their adventuring group. Because when Plan A doesn't work, you call in Plan B.
But you know, they got a lot of the Redbrands out of the way. There were still obviously some from the module there, like we kept a Nothic in the basement. There was the employed Lich. What was it, Carl?
I
Carl
mean,
was
when
his
we
name?
first walked in, though, we went up, and I fell in that trap twice.
Was that the one that dressed you up like a woman?
It was,
Yep.
yeah. And for some reason, this was here's your payback for all those great initiative rolls, kid. And I rolled horribly to jump over this trap, and fell twice, and ended up dressed as like a French maid or something. Because
Yeah, and
It's
like you
Andrew.
couldn't get out of those clothes for an hour.
yeah. So
It
Like,
was-
it was over your armor, but it was still there.
yes,
It
yeah,
was
over my armor.
beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's fine.
But that's the kind of
Um,
shit that Andrew put into the mansion, like little tricks, little gimmicks,
that
funny things.
Feywild- Feywild
I
drugs.
do. Feywild drugs. I do absolutely love though when Andrew makes a trap. See, when I make a trap, I'm a sadistic jackass. Like I'm like, how can I make this realistic? How can I make this scary? Andrew makes a trap. Like, how can I inconvenience and humiliate you? Because dying to a trap sucks. But having to walk around as a French maid,
Yeah.
God, you wish you were dead sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, the good thing is it didn't stack because I fell in it twice, and he's like, it doesn't stack. It just so I was like, all right. So I was in a French maid for like an hour and 5 minutes.
I mean, imagine doing that to some manly man who.
Eugene was a good sport though, so he had a
Yeah.
sense of humor.
He was fine with it, yeah.
Yeah. But we ran through that whole mansion pretty quick because we took care of them. But there were like a few other hiccups. There was the druid. Our druid got lost in the Feywild and found Feywild drugs, and that was funny. But then you know what was interesting? Oh no, it's not really about the Redbrands, but it was the first time I also had a god come to me. I had the Traveler,
yeah.
quote unquote god, and it was my first time playing D&D, so I didn't even know what that meant. And like, everyone else kind of knew, and I was like, oh yeah, this.
Everyone else kind of knew.
Yeah.
Okay, so Critical Role fans think of the Traveler as
Yeah.
that suave guy, that jester. I had found the Traveler before Critical Role because he's part of one of these 6 dark gods, and he's actually the kindest one.
Which
is
says
saying
a lot.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used him in the Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign because we had a cleric who was multi-classed with Wild Magic Sorcerer. And I made it so this cleric was the only follower, or the only person who's made a deal with the Traveler. So he became the Traveler's favorite. And he hated it. And the Traveler, hey, buddy. And he would just be like, oh, no. So the Traveler, Andrew brought him back. The Traveler gave him the ability to use that thing with gives him wild magic more frequently. With compounding results.
I got 1 reroll.
No. This is what I gave
gave
my player.
Oh, your player. Got it.
Yeah. I had a list of over 100,000 wild magic effects. And they compounded. And he could get a reroll whenever he wanted. But I got to just bank a use of this ability. So I could just go, hey, guess what? Roll on the wild magic table whenever I wanted, as long as I had 1 banked. I think I got up to like 8 banked, and he's like, what are you doing with them? What are you doing with them? I'm like, I'm waiting. But Andrew decided in his glory to just bring a little taste of that back.
Yeah, he did. And it worked out later, which...
Just give the option of it happening.
And I knew I had that 1 luck charm, but that's probably for another story, because I didn't actually
when you
use
actually
it until the end, the literally last
Mm-hmm.
session we played. But we went through, and I just remember that the other thing I learned from this mansion is you can't come up with a plan while outside of the door that the person you're trying to find is on the other side. Because we were like arguing outside the door, like, do we go in? Do we not go in? I was like, all right, fine, I'll go in. And I opened the door and I took a magic missile to the face. And I was like, I did that scene where like, a cartoon character like opens up the door and just gets blasted and turns like, I found him. Like that's literally what happened. I just got blasted. And that was the first time I took a magic missile to the face.
But it certainly wouldn't be the
It would
last.
not be the last for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I remember like, oh my god, because my whole thing, I just wanted to be a comical character. It's like, yeah, he definitely just looks back like, I found the wizard, I found the glass staff.
Glass staff, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god. See,
But
that glass staff. Oh.
But I also got to use the rave arrow that fight. That was the first time I learned, because actually that was probably the smartest, and I know we're probably going over time, but like
You're good.
probably like the first smart decision I ever made in D&D was you gave me that, or Andrew gave me the rave arrow, which emitted like a rave concert for like hundreds of feet or whatever.
You just
And I
click
remember-
it on to the shaft and shoot it,
Yep.
and it just strobe effect.
However, I was like, there were enemies that didn't, you said specifically in the description that they didn't have eyes. So my first turn, I took out the rave arrow and I didn't shoot it. I just put it back in my quiver. So it kind of like cloaked the whole party. So they like couldn't hit us. It was very hard for them to hit us.
So the rave arrow is actually another thing I created for the previous campaign, and Andrew decided to leave in the manor for us to find. It creates a strobe light, like, rave lighting effect for, I think it's 100 foot, like 50-foot radius kind of thing. But I also always say that blaring from the arrow comes the song Darude's Sandstorm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that just blaring. So these things that needed to hear, all they heard was
Yeah. I used it another time too. We fought the same enemies. I was like, I know exactly what to do with these guys. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was so fun. Yeah, that was that was the end of the mansion. That's how we finished taking down all the Redbrands, and their leader was the Glassstaff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the leader was the Glassstaff. All right, so coming to the end of this one, I actually want to say what I learned from this.
Go ahead. Yeah. I want to hear, because I learned a lot.
It was a lot of fun getting to see the tricks and weird items that I made and gave to my players come right back to me. And it really showed me what they valued from the campaign that I had run before. Like, I didn't think of the Rave Arrow as anything special. It was just a goofy little item that I gave them. Carl, I had forgotten all about Carl the Lich, and I know he was just kind of said in passing, but the fact that these characters and these items made it back in, it really it touched me, touched my heart.
Yeah, the mansion was like a love letter back to you for what you did.
It was a love letter to not just to me, but to our first campaign together as friends. That was the first time we really sat down and we played. Like, we did Adventurers League. That's how we met Matt. That's how we met the other Matt. We met a lot of people.
You didn't even let us talk to Carl, though.
No, because Carl's insane. We'll talk about Carl another time, because holy shit, Carl. But it's just a really nice feeling to see like how much of what I made left an impression.
I think that's awesome. A pretty good ending for this one.
Yep. So before we head out, thank you, Tom, for joining us for another episode.
Of course.
Can you tell the people where they can find you on the interwebs?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I have my podcast, You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast, where I kind of do kind of similar to this, but I talk to usually kind of total strangers and just hear about different games that they've played. It's a lot of fun. I've talked to people who were just started playing and people who have playing 30 years. You can find it pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. I also have all the episodes on YouTube, and you can just look up Tom DeSillo's Comedy on YouTube to find the episodes. And you can catch me live on Twitch at You Had to Be There podcast.
And we will link you in the description. So thank you for joining us. We always love having you. This has been another episode of the Dungeon Master's Corner. I have been Brian.
I've been Nicole.
And I've been Tom.
Can't wait to see you in our next episode. Bye.
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 Thank you for joining us for another episode of Dungeon Master's Corner. If you'd like to support us, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Reliably Chaotic. We can't feed a prison full of Redbrands on nothing but hopes and bologna sandwiches. You can also drop us a line on Twitter at Reliably Chaotic. We'd love to hear from you.